This is Patrick Stat Spore, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
32 minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Surlana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence.
Good evening, Space Cadets. It is Spaceboy, and across from me is the lovely Surlana, and this is Spaceboy Universe. It is November 24th, and we're on show number 3.09. And tonight we're going to be talking about Eisenhower and the alien connection, the untold history. Of course, it's been told, but we're going to put our spit and spin on it. But it should be for a good evening.
We're going to spit on it.
As always, follow us on Twitter. That's at the SBU Universe. Follow Surlana at Surlana. Follow Spaceboy at Spaceboy Music. That's all at Twitter, people, in case you didn't know. Make sure to hashtag your tweets tonight with SB Universe and hashtag Space Cadets. In addition to Twitter, you can find us all over social media. Just search for Spaceboy Universe. Hey, Space Cadets, you'll want to check out the YouTube channel. Yes, we do much more than the archive of shows there. There is video content from SB Music, video interviews, 2-Bit Gamers, and so much. I'm sorry, I'm starting to run out of steam here. And so much more. So hit that subscribe button and click that bell to be notified when new content is available. Can't catch a show live? No problemo. Take the SBU on the go with you via Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes, iHeartMedia, and Spotify. Because, man, we love to broadcast. And on that note, let me bring in the center of my universe, the Rock of Gibraltar. That would be Surlana. Hello, Surlana.
I'm going to apologize ahead of time. I do not feel well. I'm sorry. Now, moving on. So we just had Black Friday yesterday. Something I have never in my entire life participated in. Happy to have missed it. Don't understand why anyone does this when online shopping exists with, Amazon Prime and free shipping and blah, blah, blah. So, but apparently, now I'm looking at an article on the New York Times, whether you want to trust them or not, I'll leave that up to you. They're saying, fist fights and long lines on Black Friday, not as much anymore. So what's changed? Hopefully, shaming by showing you on YouTube, which y'all do, has stopped it. But here's what's really happened. So there's a lot of things that have happened probably in the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years, especially this year even. When you think about stores that usually were big to get hit on Black Friday, like let's talk about, Sears, Toys R Us. They don't exist now, so, they can't have those long lines. So Sears filed for bankruptcy in October. Finally, I don't know what was holding them back. So they said, like in 2011, when Sears, it was a Sears in Ohio in a big mall, it had attracted a lot of people for good deals. It had closed last year, and they haven't replaced it with anything. So in 2016, that same mall that Sears was in was replaced maybe the area that it was in was replaced with, guess what? Amazon lockers, where shoppers can pick up and return packages they bought online. So that's another thing that's hit Black Friday madness, is people are waiting to get big ticket items on Cyber Monday, which I think is smart. So, like they're saying, and it says in 2010, somebody waited in line for hours to spend roughly $400 on a 42-inch crappy, you've never heard of it version TV at Best Buy in Fort Worth. And at other store, you know, they had a 50-inch for $350 3 years ago at Best Buy. So they just show you a little bit how things have changed. So I'm really intrigued by this side-by-side picture of the same Best Buy, same day, years apart. In 2011, there's people camped out personal tents all the way from the front door down the side of the front of the store. And just yesterday, it's the same Best Buy, same time of day. There's maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people milling about, just walking in front. It's just completely different story. So, you used to see people in lawn chairs and tents outside the Best Buy in Mesquite, Texas, for instance. The psychological drivers that once compelled us to do this are becoming less and less effective, which I think is great. And they said there was a recent survey they did of 2,000 people who found that nearly 60% of these 2,000 people plan to skip in-person Black Friday shopping this year. Instead, they're going to take advantage of free shipping deals. And I think that's great. Now, there's another side-by-side photo of, in 2011, a Target parking lot where Target employees are physically holding back shoppers from trying to kill each other. And here's yesterday at a Target where people are lined up calmly. There's a few people smiling and laughing. There's still a long line, but they just seem fairly calm about it. So the enthusiasm for Black Friday that had boiled over into rage, it's probably still there, but it doesn't seem to be as like it was in 2011 and 2012. That passion is just died out because we've got things like Amazon's Prime Day. We got Cyber Monday, which even the other stores like Walmart, Target are really starting to capitalize on that as well. They've got more barriers and better communication with local authorities to curb violence too. So, I mean, they get ready for this stuff in advance. So, but it's kind of nice. But you had showed me a couple of clips. Mm-hmm. I was a couple of days. You said, here's Black Friday in Spain, and here's Black Friday in blah, blah, blah. I'm like, wait a minute. Why are they doing that in those countries? I said, did they get that idea from us?
Our European counterparts, it's a much different atmosphere.
So we've infected the world with our capitalism.
Capitalism, commercialism. I mean, it's it's much different, I think, overseas versus here.
And it's probably more humanitarian.
And you kind of wonder, okay, well, the crowds have gone away. They're not camping out anymore. So what does that mean? Well, I think it's several factors. One, the ease of the internet, of being able to log on to Amazon and then not have to deal with.
Oh my God! Why would you ever want to set foot outside your house again?
And then let's face it. In this day and age, we probably have all the technology that we need. I mean, we have computers, we have TVs, 70-inch TVs, in our homes now. I think
I don't need to look at anything in 70 inches.
I think what we've come down to is that I think that we've reached a point where everybody has everything that they want, and there's not this. There's not this one item that everybody has to get.
Like Tickle Me Elmo or Cabbage Patch Kids or
showing your age.
Yeah, well, I got an age.
But anyway, you're right. On the flip side, based on what I've seen of Black Friday, all the videos, humanity's best is still out there. and fighting over crappy stuff. And
well, I just think it's really interesting because a lot of stores have folded, and they've really bulked up their online games, the ones that are left.
Well, you mentioned Toys R Us. I'd heard that Toys R Us might be coming back.
In a different kind of way.
Well, I've just heard that they might be coming back, so we'll have to wait and see how that goes down.
You know what I think they're going to do?
What?
It's going to be like Amazon store. It's going to be like you probably have to have, before you walk in there, you probably have to have an account ready to go. I mean, you just scan and probably just walk out. I don't know, maybe. But speaking of Amazon reportedly, I don't know if this is true, but Amazon reportedly wants gas stations and restaurants to start using Amazon Pay, which I think it's only fair because a lot of places take Apple Pay, gas stations, and McDonald's, and so I think that's only fair. That would make my life tons easier. They want them to do this as part of the mobile platform. This comes from anonymous sources to the Wall Street Journal, so I don't know if it's true. But they have their sights set on gas stations and restaurants, as well as some other stores that don't directly compete with its extensive retail offerings. And Amazon Pay's actually been around since 2007. I've used it on various websites to pay for things that are not anything to do with Amazon, like rifftracks.com.
Well, it makes sense because, a lot of people use their web servers for various different, sites and data management, and so why wouldn't they add that kind of feature to?
Can you imagine saying, if you have an Alexa, you could say, Alexa, pay my bills, and done. But they talk about how they've got their own retail stores in a couple of places, and I'm like, when are we going to get that? They're talking about the advantage of QR codes over NFC tags. I don't know what NFC tags are, but they're seeing it's advantage. If you have a problem with credit cards getting approved or working them out at this would be a great way to circumvent that. They're seeing adoption in India. While Amazon has no presence in China yet, they might be expanding their efforts in India and internationally overall. How come they got to have the good stuff outside this country first? That's what I don't understand. But so I'd like to see that happen. But turns out a majority of Americans don't think social networks are good for the world. That gives me hope for the future. A new survey from Axios tells us about Facebook and its peers. So they used SurveyMonkey, good old free SurveyMonkey. They asked 3,622 adults if social media does more to help or hurt democracy and free speech. It was the second year they did this poll, and the poll found a decline in social media sentiment. So somebody who put this report together said in the past year, there has been a 15-point spike in the number of people who fear the federal government won't do enough to regulate big tech companies, with 55% now sharing this concern. 14-point increase in those who feel technology has hurt democracy and free speech. I'm going to assume they mean the internet and technology, but there's a disdain for social media as of this year.
Well, that disdain is mostly coming from millennials and the younger generation because Facebook has grown into something where the older generation have use it to like keep in touch and stuff. And
once you get it ingrained in there, they don't give up easy. They don't want to learn new stuff.
I think the millennials, on the other hand, feel that, look, I want a place where I can go and I don't need to be.
I do want another place where I can go, where I can leave select people behind on Facebook so you don't see what I'm doing over here. I do agree with that.
Well, I think that Facebook, its days are numbered based on the stuff that they do.
Well, they're saying this sentiment is a fully bipartisan phenomenon. It's whether it's the ginned up outrage about censorship or something more legitimate. Republicans now believe social media is worse for democracy and free speech than Democrats do. Now, the number of people who think it's social media is positive for society is down 40%. And I think this is due to fake news and people just spouting off their uneducated opinions. I think that's what people are probably referring to. You know, your Uncle Billy Bob doesn't have the most up-to-date take on things, let's say. But they're saying networks are doing a bad job making a case for themselves despite making huge investments in policy and communication teams. Also, if they keep losing your data and selling your stuff off, that doesn't help either. A couple of years ago, we had success for like Periscope, and then that just died off. Some of these things come and go so quickly, you know. I think this is really interesting.
I was surprised to see that Foursquare is still out there.
Yeah, I know. It's been around forever now. And then Twitter's been having problems, some bad PR stuff. And then Facebook has nothing but bad PR going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think any of that helps either.
Well, you know, it doesn't help that see, I'm going to get my foot in my mouth. This is the part where you say careful, Icarus.
Just make sure it's your opinion and you're open to other people having a different opinion.
Well, these companies are based out in California, so they have a certain way of thinking out in California versus, say, somebody here in Texas. And there's more than just people here in Texas that think the same way that we do when it comes to certain...
I know what you're thinking about.
Yeah, okay.
You're thinking, don't California my Texas.
So what we're looking at is we have companies that oversee views that are not their own, and so they are more likely to boot them out of the system than.
Are you're saying that the actual platform's jacking with the content that people post?
I surely believe that, yes. So,
that's a possibility. They don't like what they see, they get rid of it.
Well, I mean...
to skew it toward what they want.
Here's an example. A lot of right-leaning people on Facebook who do their posts, like... are you familiar with Diamond and Silk? Two ladies that...
I thought this had to do with Prince or something.
They're very... pro-Trump and everything, and
I've heard them.
Well, apparently at some point,
I've heard of Diamonds and Pearls.
At some point, Facebook closed off their account, and they had like over 1 million followers on their account.
That's outright censorship.
And basically, from what I understood, was that they were being called hate speech, and so. The people who control these platforms can say anything.
Because their product.
It's their product. And I can understand that from that point. But when you're trying to create a product where everybody can come together as groups and, and different things, it kind of defeats the purpose of, okay, no, we don't want you on our platform. No, I think that... we're in a society where everybody gets their butt hurt over saying something when somebody says something, and quite frankly, we used to be in a time when we could say things and people would respect what you had to say and disagree with you. We agreed to disagree. But unfortunately, that's just the time we live in right now. And
you're not allowed to disagree.
And right now, social media, and don't get me started on the news.
If you disagree, you're evil.
I mean,
we won't get you started.
Yeah.
Well, and slightly less depressing news.
Well, let me continue with this.
Oh, no. Come on. It's such a bummer.
No, because I was going to go down the road of Doctor Who.
Oh.
So,
speaking of depressing things.
So, here was this big hoopla about Jodie Whittaker coming on board to be the new doctor, female doctor. And a lot of people were kind of, about the whole thing of having a female doctor. Now, it's being reported that her and showrunner Chris Chibnall are rumored to be quitting next year. So here's my gripe.
That didn't last long.
No, exactly. And so
Why?
Here you go, Kay. So my complaint is, if you knew you didn't want to do the job, why did you take it in the first place? So there's my gripe, is that, you're
leading me to believe she did want to do the job, but something didn't go the way she wanted it, and now she wants out.
Yeah, basically.
Like nobody likes it.
She wants to spend more time with her kids, from what I understood.
Suddenly, she wants to spend more time with her kids.
And so. And God, I could really go down the list here. So that is the situation that we're facing. She should have, okay, now here's my opinion of the Doctor Who. So I gave it a chance. I watched her. She's not one of the greatest doctors that have come on board. She lacks the enthusiasm that should be brought to the role. For example, like David Tennant was very goofy and into it. Even Matt
Smith was goofy too.
But the thing with Matt Smith is, I was reluctant about him as well, but he kind of proved me wrong. I actually enjoy Matt Smith. I mean, I'm not going to say he's my favorite Doctor, because David Tennant ranks up there. Tom Baker. I think in the end, Tom Baker really kind of showed everybody what the Doctor should be. Kind of eclectic and kind of out there, funny, amusing, serious when you need to be. But anyway, Jodie Whittaker's character has not, it seems forced. And I don't think she brings the enthusiasm or the energy that is needed for that role. As far as the other parts of the show, the companions, the companions are okay. There's one of the companions I like. His name's Grant, and he's kind of an older man, and I've enjoyed watching his parts in the show. At the end of the day, I'm disappointed because the show pushes PC, and a lot of people do not want
social media, social justice warrior crap.
And a lot of people don't want that in a show. It's all right to. There was a coworker that I liked a lot, that she said, it's all right to be angry at somebody. Just you gotta kick them and smile about it. And what she meant by that was, you're gonna have people that make you mad, but just get them back, but do it in a way that you're smiling about it. And in this situation, where I guess what I'm trying to apply is that God, I lost my thought. See, these things get me riled up.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Jodie Foster. There I go.
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I just thought I'd.
You just derailed yourself.
Derailed myself. Yes. Anyway, Doctor Who. I guess we'll see. Could this be the end of Doctor Who? Maybe it has to die so that it could be reborn. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I've been quickly looking for something about it on that certain website I go to get a certain point of view. Curiously, I'm not seeing anything about it, which is odd. No, that's crazy. Other than there was an article about what Doctor Who means to me by some woman. So I'm not seeing. Anyway. Anywho, so in slightly less depressing news, although I find pretty much all the Toy Story movies a little bit depressing, because I'm like, we get it. He grew up. He got old. He doesn't love you anymore. Get over it.
What about Up?
Toy Story 4?
Up?
I'm not talking about Up right now.
I know, but I was just referring to that being
I know all
sad.
Pixars want to stab you in the heart. I don't know why they want to do this to children.
Don't get angry at me.
But apparently, Keanu Reeves is going to voice a new character in Toy Story 4.
Whoa.
But I'm just going to say, why do all Pixar movies want to just plunge a dagger in your heart and twist it? I don't know why. So, now Tim Allen revealed this recently. I think he was recently on some show talking about Toy Story 4 and how he didn't have the lines that he used to have, where Hank says all the good lines, and, So, It's
But does he
coming.
get a paycheck?
I don't know.
No, but you know what I'm saying? Complaining, oh, I don't get this line, I don't get that line.
There'll be some other new additions, too. Forky, a spork-turned-craft project, gains sentience. That's really weird. I think there's kind of stretching here. Newcomers to the film, Carnival Toys, Ducky and Bunny, voiced by Keegan-Michael Key and Jordan Peele. So it's Key and Jordan Peele.
Cool.
Yeah. So you're getting some younger kids. Kids. Keanu's probably slightly younger than you and I, but not by much. Anyway, so. So, this chest-mounted robot feeding arm could stuff your face when you're too full to move. You could have used this Thursday. So, seeing a repeating GIF of these two people, they have this kind of bulky thing strapped to their chest, and it goes over their neck, around their back, and it's just a robot arm that is picking up food and bringing it to their mouths. I don't know what the point of this is. If we've not reached this gravy-soaked utopia yet, researchers from Australia and India have taken us a step closer with Arm-A-Dine, a robot arm worn in the middle of the chest that picks up food off the table and conveys it to your mouth or your dining partner's mouth. Why bother? I mean, seriously. It's actually a prototype designed to augment the social experience of eating. A research paper somebody did somewhere at the Institute of someplace somewhere. These researchers explain how most food technology is focused on the preparation of food and not the eating experience. These researchers warn about a loneliness epidemic, and many meals are taken with smartphone in hand. So yeah, when you're off by yourself, like at a restaurant, and you're eating, of course you're on your phone. You don't look like an epic loser. It gives you something to do, and it also says, stay away from me, too. I just thought it was funny. It only grabs food from the table. It also makes a judgment on who to feed it to with a facial recognition app running attached to a smartphone that scans your dining partner's expression. If they're smiling, your arm offers them food. If they're frowning, you get it. This might be interesting. But again, why? I just thought it was funny.
Was it this week that we lost Stan Lee?
Earlier in the week. We talked about it last show. We talked about it last week.
And what about Roy Clark?
That's more recent. I know who he was, and he's a musician, and I know he was on Hee Haw, but I really don't have any more information about him because he wasn't somebody I tracked.
Well, I know you're a big fan of country music. I mean, you're always telling me, Spaceboy, put on some country music when we're in the car. And
it's more like, if you dare put on a country music song, I will crash this vehicle.
Well, I enjoy a little country music now. And you know what it is? I don't like modern country.
Yeah. Well, you. The nice thing about you is you enjoy that privately. That's how I enjoy you enjoying it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's nice. All right, dear. I'm looking at the clock, and it looks like we're at the bottom of the hour. So let's take this break, and when we come back, we'll get into our subject.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
This is author Gordon Root. You are listening to the Spaceboy Universe.
This is K28, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hi, y'all. This is Lori calling from Texas, and I love listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
This is Wendy. I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe. Hey, y'all. This is Lorelai DeLille. I listen to Spaceboy Universe. Don't you? Tell your mom and them I said hi.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back. And tonight,
I'm out of breath.
Our topic is Eisenhower and the alien connection. You know, a little historical perspective before we dive all into this, and Surlana starts yelling at me for jumping off the subject.
I already got all that in here.
Okay. Basically, this all starts back with Harry Truman, who basically, once he resigned and his presidency was up, he gave Eisenhower a nice little package that contained top secret. They contain a top secret project called Majestic 12, and I guess that's where we start from there.
For the most part, we really need to start coordinating how we do open these shows so we don't seem so redundant.
Oh, okay. Maybe we should change the show to Surlana's Universe.
That would be awesome. Then I could say I quit, and then it would be the end of it. So let's start out. I was going to start out by saying this. I think it's safe to say, if I include you in this statement, that you and I both agree, if there are such things as non-terrestrial beings, our government and other governments know all about it. And they've probably known about it a lot longer than what we're talking about tonight. Now, I personally further believe that this was not first contact with humanity. I think it came earlier, before recorded history could, talk about it. So, where's my evidence for that? I don't have any. It just seems logical to me. So, but this story we're talking about tonight intrigues me as to what did our government know, what did he not know, what the rumors about Eisenhower's meeting with these aliens point out about his time in office, which was 1953 to 61, because he was reelected. I had vaguely heard of this, but I have never dived into this subject matter. And the things I learned were, I'm not going to say they were shocking, but they were just, I don't know, I guess I wasn't prepared for it. And as you said, let's give it a little historical spin. What's going on in 1953, 54-ish, when he's first in office, Eisenhower?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a lot of things that happened to him during his presidency from a political standpoint. We just got, well off of World War II. Truman saw us through that. So, but he himself, Eisenhower, was a general. So yes. he's military. Now, we were bomb testing in the Bikini Atoll. Then in 47, right before this happened, we had that Roswell crash before he got into office. So that all kind of makes sense to me. So he's also dealing with McCarthyism, the question of school segregation in Brown versus the Board of Education. That's weighing everyone down. He's trying to warn us about the situation in Vietnam. Again, the hydrogen bomb testing in the Bikini Atoll. What I recall about this era, the little bit I know about him, is the campaign, the I Like Ike buttons, to get him. He was, like you said, he's a general in the war, so he was well respected. So I'm guessing that's how he probably got into office, because people felt like he would take care of America, I'm guessing. Now, what did the President Eisenhower know before the supposed alien first contact? Well, as you kindly pointed out, Spaceboy, President Harry Truman is going out of the Oval Office, and he's handing over to new incumbent Dwight D. Eisenhower, 1953. So, Truman's going out, and he gives Eisenhower, supposedly, a hefty file containing top secret, top classified information about a project called Majestic 12, or MJ-12, that Truman created by a classified executive order. So if you've ever wondered where that came from, it's Truman. So Majestic 12, is the code name for an alleged secret committee of scientists, military leaders, government officials, formed in, lo and behold, 1947. Wonder what could have prompted that. By U.S. President order to facilitate the recovery investigation of alien spacecraft. So we're talking about Roswell, without saying it. Sorry, I'm having a little sip every now and then because it's helping. It's just club soda. Now, something to note here, among all the presidents of the U.S. up to this point, Eisenhower was probably the most passionate and interested in the UFO phenomenon and in alien life itself. So I think he was a believer before he ever saw or heard anything. That's what I'm understanding this to mean. In fact, they're saying there's ample evidence that says Eisenhower may have met with alien beings at least 3 separate times, and we'll get into that. Now, I rewatched a 17-minute video on YouTube, and I have seen this before. It has been a while. It was something I watched probably before the universe here ever existed, because I was just, interested. So I had to go back and rewatch it for this show. And it's Richard Dolan. He's interviewing a former CIA official who is a whistleblower about some of the stuff. Now, he's in the video description, I didn't see this man's name given, and he did tell Dolan that he had a name he was born with, but when he went into the military, he used a fake name. Now, this ex-CIA guy, he was pretty much on his deathbed when he was telling Dolan this. He was about to have a procedure, and he says, if the procedure doesn't work, I've got months to live, and then I'm done. But he said Eisenhower wanted to find out about the aliens that MJ-12 never told him about or reported. Ike said the government had no jurisdiction over Area 51, and I guess that bothered him. So Eisenhower sent the guy who was in the CIA and his boss, his supervisor, or his superior officer, because this is military. So this guy and his boss fly out to Area 51, and the president said, you go there, you find out whoever's in charge of the base, and you give them this personal message from me. They have, meaning whoever's in charge of Area 51, has 1 week to get in touch with D.C. and report to the president. If they don't, Ike is going to get the 1st Army from Colorado to take over Area 51. You know, he's going to invade a military base. He said he didn't care what classified stuff they had here or what was going on. He was going to invade it if they didn't get their butts to Washington and report all within 1 week. So they get there, this guy and his superior officer, to Area 51, and the first thing saw was the craft. Says he saw the Roswell crashed craft, and it was pretty banged up. He learned in that crash all but 2 aliens died immediately. He says that craft looked like a floating heavy aluminum foil, and you could push it with your hands while it was kind of hovering there, and they used reverse gravitational methods. He was actually handed a 3x5 card with all the math on how to do that. He saw a live gray alien, and his superior talked to it at S4 after they viewed the official autopsy film of, the ones that died in the crash. So his boss had a partial interview with a live gray alien, and they wanted, the people at 51 wanted him to see this alien so they could report it back to the president that there is a live alien at S4. While they were there, they also saw the U-2 and SR-71, which was, cutting edge black project. No one's ever seen that before. So they see all this stuff. They come back to D.C. and meet with President and Vice President Nixon and Hoover. I'm guessing that's J. Edgar Hoover, not Herbert Hoover. So they told the president and the president's men about the alien and all the tech and the black projects. He said Ike was visibly worried, but he was most shocked about the black projects that came out of, interaction with the aliens. So that tells me there's a piece of the government inside our government that doesn't talk to the other factions, and they hold secrets from each other. That's very worrisome. Not only us, but each other, freaky. Okay. So let's get into the meat and potatoes here, The Edwards Air Force Base story. Now, supposedly official first contact took place in early 1954. But they kind of made it look like this is all part of a routine trip that Ike's going to make, to this base. But then the president goes missing. Now, here's the thing I don't understand was how long was he missing that people were getting worried? I didn't quite get that time frame. They said he was on the air base. This is Muroc, but it becomes Edwards Air Force Base. He got a name change. But he was on the Air Force Base between February 17th and the 24th. The official story was that the president was enjoying some fried chicken, and he damaged a tooth while eating. So they immediately fly him to an air base. I mean, that's a bit of an overreaction, don't you think? See, that was kind of a weak lie. And they said, well, he was there because in Palm Springs, California, he was there as a getaway getaway vacation from stress, but he had just gone on vacation in Georgia the week before. So I don't know if they kept changing the story, but it was starting to look suspicious. Now, it was supposedly a crown that he damaged, and he said it had a difficult history from the beginning. It was cemented on Eisenhower's tooth in July of 52. It was chipped and needed repaired only 5 months later in December. It would eventually have to be replaced by the president's dentist, Fairchild, in 54 when he replaced the thin gold platinum thimble crown. And then they go into all the details about the crown, which is kind of weird. Like, how do they know all this stuff? So,
here's the problem with that is that the Eisenhower Presidential Library
doesn't have any record.
Has detailed reports on all of Eisenhower's medical and dental records. However, there is no reference to a broken or chipped tooth or a dental visit to Palm Springs visit.
Exactly. And don't you know they were digging all in it for some reason, you know? So he's in Palm Springs, California for a vacation, which is scheduled in an oddly rushed manner, so people say. It was a bit peculiar was the fact that Eisenhower had just returned from a quail shooting vacation in Georgia. He was not the type of person to spend much time on vacation. I guess he's just one of those presidents that didn't take time off, but I still don't see why. Well, I want a vacation here this week, and then I want a vacation here this week. I don't see that as weird. But anyway, on February 20th, everything started out simple in a non-dramatic way in his presidential day. He had written a letter to his son, John, detailing his previous 2 days in California. He told his son that he had a good round of golf with Ben Hogan, the professional golfer, so everything's normal, okay? Then that evening at 8 p.m., he was whisked away to an undisclosed location. The press heard Eisenhower was not where he was supposed to be, because I think he had a public dinner to attend and he wasn't there, so he was unaccounted for. So speculation began immediately, like, where is he, what's going on? This shocked me out of everything I've read for this story. Later that night, the Associated Press issued a statement, President Eisenhower died tonight of a heart attack in Palm Springs, only to be retracted 2 minutes later when they're calling it a mistake, but, talking about adding fuel to a fire. I wonder if they did that to get somebody to come to the forefront and say where he was, it was a scare tactic.
Bait and switch.
Yeah. They're like, take that down, the president's fine, So people were starting to fear for the safety of both the president and the nation. And I guess the rumors and speculation began instantly. I don't think the speculation was aliens, amongst the public. But, it's the fear of the unknown. He's disappeared. And then the next morning, as the president and Mrs. Eisenhower attended religious services in Palm Springs Community Church, later that day, a dentist, Dr. Francis Purcell, was introduced at an event as the dentist who treated the president last night. Weirdly, Dr. Purcell must not have thought it worth mentioning to his wife because, they interviewed her after he passed away, the doctor's widow. She said in 1979, the interview, she had no recollection of her husband ever treating Eisenhower. No dental records mentioning his dental treatment were ever found in Purcell's office. Now, I don't know if that holds water because if you worked on the president, maybe they do want to keep it hush-hush for whatever weird reason. Maybe they told him not to say anything, but I don't know. That one's a little flimsy to me.
Mm-hmm.
So the next few days, Eisenhower goes home to the White House, supposedly refreshed, quote unquote, from his California excursion. 1 week later, it's March 1st. We performed our first nuclear test of a dry fuel hydrogen bomb at the Bikini Atoll under the codename Castle Bravo. It apparently doesn't go according to expectations. It had a 15 megaton yield, while predictions were for a 6 megaton yield. The wild speculation persists that Eisenhower's whereabouts on February 20th had to do with Castle Bravo planning rather than emergency dental surgery. So that's what people were leaping to these conclusions. Like I said, his widow for that dentist never recalled anything, but maybe he wasn't supposed to. But so they think he was at the Air Force Base as part of the actual first official contact with aliens. So, Ike went to the Air Force Base to meet them. Supposedly the first ones he talked to are distinctive Nordic-looking aliens. There was a series of meetings that would eventually lead to a treaty signed among several of the factions, including the Greys, whose motivations were very different from the others. So they're saying the first contact meeting, as it is termed, had some intrigue. Eisenhower's secret contact meeting on February 21st, 1954 is believed to have been between the Nordic aliens, which is also known as the Pleiadians, an advanced extraterrestrial race from the Pleiades star cluster with a distinctive Nordic appearance. So I'm thinking they look Swedish, Scandinavian.
Mm-hmm.
Fair hair, blue eyes, white skin.
That's how they're usually described.
Makes me think about Nazis. So, do we want to start a new section here?
Actually, why don't we go ahead and take our break?
Let me see who I've missed in the chat room.
Why don't you catch up with the Space Cadets in the chat room, and we'll be right back after this.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
Hey, Surlana!
What?
If Spaceboy Universe was cheese, would you eat it? Come on now, it's a simple question.
Maybe.
SpaceboyUniverse.com.
can't tell. No. It's probably getting there.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Well, apparently we had a little glitch there. We maybe forgot to mute the mics, but, behind the scenes stuff, we can always go back and take it out later, I suppose. If Spaceboy's going to do that, I don't know. He's in there in the kitchen doing ungodly things with peanut butter and jelly that you're not supposed to do on toast. So that's what I was fussing at him about. So, and again, I apologize. I am under the weather and I would rather be elsewhere, but I still want to talk about this because it's a fascinating story. So, we've got this speculation. Where did Eisenhower go? Where is he at? Where'd he go? So, he goes apparently missing from the public eye. And I'm trying to think, would this be an issue today? I mean, how long was he gone? He was saying from the 21st to 24th. How many days is that? 3, 4? I guess that would cause problems today if that happened. Or some people might celebrate. I don't know. So, what evidence do we have that he was at this base meeting with aliens? So, what we have is testimony and what witnesses who were there who become, I guess, whistleblowers after the fact, years later. So the evidence of Edwards Air Force Base. Okay. First, we've got these hastily put together poor excuses of cover-ups. The dentist, vacation, as to where and why the president disappeared. Because he missed a public meeting on February 20th, 1954. He was supposed to go to a public dinner meeting. And, they said, he had a heart attack and died. And so they had to retract that statement because it was so wrong. People think maybe he was whisked away, something to do with the hydrogen bomb testing going wrong or something. So immediately the conspiracy theories start, right? Even back then. But two, I don't know that got mentioned back then, but one, he went missing to start a dialogue with an alien race that had landed, and two, he was there visiting UFO wreckage. Now keep in mind, this is 1954. We've already had the Roswell crash, and he's already sent a team to go investigate that and threaten them. Now, this story about Eisenhower meeting aliens broke from the underground, I guess maybe from within or so. It's said this whole story has more credence because there are some photos, there's some physical evidence. I didn't find any of them that looked legitimate in my research. They were all obviously crazily photoshopped. So maybe they haven't been put out there for the public. So, he might have been there to view the corpses of previous aliens. So, but my question is, how do aliens, if they're so advanced enough to get to Earth, how do they die during a time when our tech couldn't have been anywhere near the level they have now? This is the Roswell question. I'll just leave that out there in the universe.
It's said that the radars is what brought down the craft that the Roswell crash.
I'm sorry I interrupted you during your sandwich break.
Well, you're handling this so well, so.
Considering I don't feel well. Anyway, it said that Ike already had a strong belief in life on other planets. I guess maybe before he was ever president, perhaps. And there had been some existing rumors that he was there to visit aliens before he even arrived at Edwards Air Force Base. Now, they're saying in February 1955, approximately 300 people saw Air Force One land at Holloman Air Force Base. This is a different base. And taxi back out to the end of the runway. Shortly after the plane landed, the pilot instructed the tower to turn off all radar while the president's plane was on the tarmac. Shortly after Air Force One landed, the radar was turned off. 3 round objects were seen in the sky. One landed about 200 feet in front of Air Force One. The other hovered over the area, kind of keeping watch. And then the third one disappeared. A man presumed to be Eisenhower descended from the steps of Air Force One, started shaking hands with a being at the door of the saucer, And entering the saucer-shaped aircraft, he was in there for 45 minutes. He left. He was not wearing a hat, clearly visible to many observers. All witnesses later recognized him as President Eisenhower. Now, if that happened, that had to either been the second or third meeting, because this is the year later, 55. So, but what we've got for the first so-called first contact is witness testimonies and documentation, by the way. It's top secret classified stuff. First guy you've probably heard of in this whole story, which I just learned about, is Gerald Light. He wrote a letter to Eisenhower about his meeting or encounter or seeing the extraterrestrials on the base in California. It's a first public source alleging a meeting with extraterrestrials. His letter was dated April 16th, 1954, to Meade Lane, who was then the director of Borderlands Sciences Research Associates. Light claimed he was part of a delegation of community leaders to an alleged meeting with extraterrestrials at Edwards Air Force Base. Of course, there was a bit of skepticism about Light because, they were saying he's skilled in clairvoyance and the occult. He's also a leader of a metaphysical community in Southern California. So, you can imagine during the era of McCarthyism, what they might have thought about someone like that. But in this letter that he wrote to the president, Light said he had just returned from the Air Force Base, and he called it Muroc, so it went through a name change. It changed to Edwards Air Force Base. So he claimed that what he heard was devastatingly true. So Gerald went there with Franklin Allen of the Hearst Papers, Edwin Nourse of the Brookings Institute, and Bishop McIntyre of Los Angeles. So you've got your science, you've got your holy guy, you've got your people from, the government. So it's like you got all your bases covered, right? So they let these guys into the restricted section of the base. Now, Light says he never saw so many humans in a state of collapse and confusion. Now, that sentence bothered me. It was like, what is he talking about? He's talking about the people that work there or people who are interacting with these aliens. It's just the reality that there is life beside us just too much to handle. I don't quite get what he means by that, but he wrote a lot of this in what I consider to be like over-the-top language, but he was really feeling something. Light said the reality hit him, and it was rather painful. I guess maybe this was like an end of innocence moment where, we were all warm and safe thinking we're the only life form out there, and then you find out not only are you not the only one, there's more than one. So he also said he saw 5 distinct aircraft that were there at the base, and they're being studied by our officials with the permission of some people called the Etherians. Light said he felt like the world had come to an end. I guess just because he saw aliens. Again, this is the end of innocence, I guess. It makes you wonder what happened during this viewing of aliens. But he also he said that because of everything he saw, he figured it would be, this is like maybe February, he thought by May of that same year, they would disclose this to the public. Yet, as we know, no one ever said a word. His take on it in this letter was emotional and psychological. It was a life-changing event for him. Now, the other guys that I mentioned, Dr. Edwin Nourse, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. He was the first chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors to the president. He was Truman's chief economic advisor. He had retired the year before, but he was a good choice to give confidential economic advice to Eisenhower's administration. If he was at this meeting, he did it because his expertise was going to be on what is the economic impact on America if they disclose first contact with extraterrestrials? So I think that was what was weighing on Eisenhower's mind about this. Cardinal James Francis McIntyre was a bishop and head of a Catholic church in Los Angeles, and he would have been there to gauge for possible reaction from religious leaders, and generally because he was most influential in his area. And of course, he represented the Roman Catholic Church, which is gigantic across the globe. So I guess they brought him in to get a read on the situation from a religious point of view. He would have been a good choice to represent the Vatican. He was appointed the first cardinal of the Western United States by Pope Pius the X11. So that's, what, 10, 11, 12? I don't know. 12. His correspondence is closed to researchers, thus making it possible to confirm what impact the bishop's visit to Murrock / Edwards had on him. He had sufficient rank and authority to represent the Catholic Church, so that's why they had him there. The fourth member was Franklin Winthrop Allen. He was a former reporter at Hearst newspaper groups. Allen was 80 years old at the time, believe it or not. I'm surprised he didn't die of a heart attack by seeing all this. He authored a book instructing reporters on how to deal with congressional committee hearings. So he would have been a good choice for a member of the press to maintain confidentiality. So here's what I'm saying. You've got your 4 senior leaders: religious, spiritual, economic, and media, if you will, newspaper. And they were older men, established in their field and well respected. So they brought them there to assess what the outcome would be if they said, hey, y'all, we got some aliens. So is it all going to be, is it going to be chaos and the apocalypse? So that's actually, I thought, fairly smart to do. Maybe get it checked out, but still. Now, they're saying Gerald Light may have contrived such a list in a fabricated account or some kind of other weirdness he has. But there's nothing in his letter that eliminates the possibility that there were plausible members of such a delegation. At face value, these wise men give some credence to claim. So, getting people who have got good reputations actually adds to the story. So it can be concluded that all this makes up circumstantial evidence that a meeting did occur. So we look at this timeline. Eisenhower goes missing. The second is the weak cover story used for his absence. Third, Light's description of actual events at the meeting in terms of psychological and emotional impact of how he described this meeting, and it's consistent with what I guess you'd expect. And then the final point here is that Gerald Light's description of the composition of community leaders of these wise men at the meeting is credible. So this is circumstantial evidence that helps to solidify this claim that Eisenhower was present at some point and did meet with non-human entities. Now, here's a name you'll hear a lot from now forward in this program, is William Cooper. William Cooper served on the Naval Intelligence Briefing Team for the commander of the Pacific Fleet from 1970 to 73. Now, he had access to classified documents because he had to review them for these briefings. It's Cooper that describes first contact. He said, first, what happened was in 1953, astronomers found these large objects in space moving toward Earth. And of course, the first thought is, hey, it's just asteroids, because there's always a lot of them, right? Later, as they got closer, they discovered they were spaceships. So apparently we intercepted them using radio signals. They had, radio signals using Project Sigma. And we did it using binary language. And we told them where's a safe place to land and arrange a face-to-face contact. Now, there's this group was, when they got to Earth, they were orbiting around the equator, really high orbit. There were several huge ships, and of course we couldn't tell what their intent was. So they started up Project Pluto to establish diplomatic relations. There was another race of human-looking aliens that were contacting the government at the same time. Now, these human-looking aliens, which I'm guessing this must be the Nordics, warned us about the ones orbiting the equator and offered to help us get rid of them and help us with our spiritual development. And they said, in order for us to do that, you have to get rid of your nuclear weapons and stop all the testing you're doing, and they'll help you. Well, and they said, we're not going to give you our technology either, because you're not even spiritually, emotionally mature enough to handle your own technology. Look what y'all are doing down there. So they figured we'd use any new tech to destroy each other, and I think that's probably right on the nose. I think they had that part right. So the human-looking aliens said that we are on a path of self-destruction, and we have to stop killing each other. We have to stop polluting the earth. We need to stop raping the earth's natural resources and learn to live in harmony. You know, just little small ticket items. So, of course, the first thought is suspicion from the humans. And the condition of the major disarmament, Eisenhower wasn't going for it. So, and the reason he didn't go for it is he thought that condition would leave us helpless in the face of any other alien threat. We also had nothing in history to help with a decision like there's no precedent for this, right? Nuclear disarmament could not be considered because that's not in the best interest of the U.S., so these overtures were rejected. So they wanted to, they offered to help us with the other bad guys, get us towards spiritual enlightenment, and we said, no, not doing it. Now, there's another credible witness. The son of a former Navy commander claimed his father had been present at first contact between February 20th, 21st, 1954. The son's name is Charles L. Suggs. That's also the father's name, Charles L. Suggs. Now, Suggs was the former commander of the U.S. Navy who attended these meetings at Edwards with Ike. And Suggs says his father told him about these meetings, and the father gave an interview, or the son, father or the son, that's what you get when you name your kids the same thing, gave an interview in 1991 where he said the president met and spoke with two white-haired Nordics, pale blue eyes, colorless lips. They wouldn't let any human get too close to them. So one of the aliens stood on an extended ramp of the saucer and didn't come any closer, and the other one stood a little further in, but he's like, no, y'all stay back, like we had, cooties, which we probably do. They said they came from another solar system, and they asked us really detailed questions about our nuclear testing. And I find out later why. So you've got this guy, Suggs. He's another witness. And then here we've got another witness who becomes, I guess, a whistleblower, once it's after all said and done. To this whole we made first contact meeting was none other than the creator of the Lear jet, William Lear. Lear said there had been a warning from another race prior to an agreement being signed, because they wanted to sign an agreement, a treaty with these aliens, which I think is kind of crazy. He said they visited Muroc/Edwards, and the following occurred according to Lear. In 1954, President Eisenhower met with a representative of another alien species on the Air Force Base test center, which is now Edwards. This alien suggested that they could help us get rid of the Greys, but Eisenhower turned down their offer because they offered no technology, so that must have been the Nordics that Lear is speaking of, I'm guessing, because that matches the previous story. So both Lear and Cooper said more than one race or group interacted with Ike or his administration. One other witness to this is Master Sergeant Robert Dean. He had access to these documents because he had to review them in the intelligence division. Dean said for certain there were just 4 groups, and the Greys are one of them. And there was a group that looks like we do, so I'm guessing this is the Nordics again. There was a human group that looked so much like us that it really drove the admirals and the generals crazy, because they determined that these people, and they that had seen them repeatedly, had contact with them. There had been abductions, and there had been contacts. Now, it's kind of a convoluted statement. I don't understand what he means there. Dean describes the other 2 groups as very large aliens, 6 to 9 feet tall humanoids, pale, white, no hair. The other had a reptilian quality, vertical pupils and skin like the stomach of a lizard. And so you've got the Nordics, the tall guys, the Greys, and the lizard people. And then that pretty much has, I guess that was the genesis for everything that comes after that we hear in ufology about, the Anunnaki, the Greys, and so the reptilians, and it's all going to start coming together now. Everything we've talked about previously on the show, kind of, this is the impetus. If we talk about Area 51, if we talk about Roswell, and then we talk about this, then we can start slotting in the building of underground bases, what they'll say, and you'll see here in a minute. Now, according to Michael Sala, who's a retired exopolitical scholar, these aliens were concerned about the damage that nuclear fission has on space itself, as well as other races. So if we're down here blowing each other up with these devastating weapons, it doesn't just stay contained, I guess, in our atmosphere. I guess there's repercussions outside of the planet that could have an effect.
I think I made the comparison to you at one point about tossing a rock into, a little
pond.
A pond, yes, and the ripples reverberating out.
Can you imagine being noticed like, what are you knuckle dragon primates doing down here? Stay out of our nice, pretty universe. So therefore, the deal was fairly simple. Remove these instruments of mass destruction and receive an equivalent that can be used for good instead of war. It's just never going to fly here,
Mm-hmm.
Now, there are some discrepancies about all of this, like which aliens the president actually met, when, who said what, where, when, of course. Now, Light's testimony says that the meeting at Edwards did not result in any agreement between us and them, but it resulted in some intense disagreement between Eisenhower's officials or administration. The aliens have made both formal and informal contact with thousands of people throughout the world from all walks of life. This is from Timothy Good. And I can tell you that in 1954, President Eisenhower had 3 encounters, set up meetings with aliens, which took place at certain Air Force bases, including Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. That's also significant to remember that base. Again, Dean says these aliens scared the poopy crap out of everyone by just being there and seeing their technology and their ships. Like, I don't think they were doing anything threatening. They were just scared on basic principles. He says everyone was there at Edwards Air Force Base for 2 days. That's according to Dean. All right, so the whole point, I guess, was to set up diplomatic relations and come to some agreement like, don't mess with us, please. So the 1954 agreement with the aliens. So when the first contact did not have the results they were wanting, meaning there was no agreement or treaty signed, we refused their offers of assistance because we didn't want to give up our tech and they wouldn't give up their tech. We wouldn't give up our nukes, basically. So there were 2 more sets of meetings after this. Either the president was there or people he sent there. And these took place, again, at Holloman in New Mexico, which is incidentally 120 miles from Roswell. So later in that year of 54, they also learned about the large-nosed gray aliens who were orbiting the Earth, and they quit, and they finally landed at Holloman. This race said they come from a planet around a red star in the constellation of Orion called Betelgeuse. Their planet is dying, so at some point they're not going to be able to live there anymore. So maybe they're, roaming for a new, they're looking for a new place to go. So Holloman was the site for all other ET meetings. So these guys signed a treaty. Now, the terms of this treaty were described by William Cooper. He said, the treaty stated that the aliens could not interfere in our affairs. We cannot interfere in theirs, as if we could. We would keep their presence on Earth a secret. They would furnish us with advanced technology and help us in our technological development. They would not make any treaty with any other Earth nation. How did we get so lucky to get them first, by the way? How did they land here first? They could abduct humans on a limited and periodic basis for purpose of medical examination and monitoring of our development, with a stipulation that the humans would not be harmed and they would be returned to their point of abduction. They would have no memory of the event, and the alien nation would furnish MJ-12 with a list of all human contacts, abductees on a regularly scheduled basis. That was the treaty. Let's stop for a moment and think about how our government just sold us out. Its own people. It just sold us out. It could have been, if this is real and it's happened and they did take people, it could have been anybody.
Also note that they were supposed to keep notes on the people because in the future that comes up.
Yeah. Now, I got just enough time to stick this in. So hold on to your hats. There was another person who corroborates this, and he became a whistleblower and very dramatically paid the price. I think, in my opinion, it's not verified. And he verifies that these meetings did take place, and that is Phil Schneider. His videos are still on YouTube. Go look him up. That's Schneider. He was contracted to build the underground bases because he was a geologist, and he worked extensively on black projects with ETs. He actually shot them, and he shot him back because they were mean suckers. So here's what Schneider knew about the treaty. Our government decided to circumvent our Constitution and form a treaty with aliens. The 1954 Grenada Treaty, which meant aliens could take cows and test their implanting techniques, a few humans, but they had to give all the details on which humans they took. Schneider's knowledge of the treaty would have come from his familiarity with a range of compartmentalized black projects and interaction with other personnel working with extraterrestrials. So then there's a testimony of Don Phillips, an Air Force serviceman. He worked on clandestine aviation projects. He testified he saw documents describing this meeting between the president and the aliens. He said they have records between this meeting between our leaders and ETs in California. And we were asked if they would allow us to do research here. So I'm guessing they built these underground bases and let the aliens do research in them. That's what I'm inferring because they're talking about Schneider. And lastly, but not least, Colonel Philip Corso wrote in his memoirs, we had negotiated a kind of surrender with them, meaning the ETs, as long as we couldn't fight them. They dictated the terms because they knew what we feared most was disclosure. Corso didn't seem too happy with this treaty/agreement. Yeah, disclosures would be more devastating than anything the aliens could do.
Mm-hmm.
You You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
The epic battle begins this Friday. Direct from ringside at Laser Death Melt Pit. Bot versus Bot in Galaxy's 2-ton weight championship, where your challenger, Good Bot, will face the reigning champion, Bad Bot.
You're terminated.
Reserve seating starting at $30. 2-drink minimum, where ladies don't get in free. This is an SBU production.
You're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Bear with us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going through the Book of Secrets.
It's my fault. We were going to open the phone lines at the next break, but I no longer know a password, so that can't happen until I find this password. I have to use one thing to connect to another thing, and then you know how it goes. One thing leads to another.
It's not the usual with the
No,
surprise.
it's with some funky things at the end. I think it's that one. We're not doing this in sign language.
We're doing special sign language.
Password, sign language. No, that ain't it. You don't have the Book of Secrets?
I do, but I don't see...
It's like... you got to go past everything. It's near the last bit of written stuff. It's not organized. It's just like... Go to the last blank page and work your way back.
How about I do you a solid?
Do me a solid. You pass the book over. Shall I continue?
Yeah, continue.
Okay, let's just continue. All right, so where we are in the story is supposedly the president and his people have met with aliens at least once. We wanted to sign some agreement, right? So one of the races said, we'll sign if you agree to get rid of this, that, and the other. And we said, no, we can't do that. That's not in our best interest. So they didn't sign. So who did and who agreed? This is it right here in red, I think. Right here. Okay. But we'll get to that in a second. Sorry, it's me hitting the mic arm. Anyway, so again, we go back to William Cooper's testimony. William Cooper says the Greys were not trustworthy. Surprise, surprise. And just a year later, in 1955, it became obvious that the Greys, the aliens, had deceived Eisenhower and broken the treaty they signed. It was suspected that these guys were not submitting a complete list of human contacts and abductees to NJ-12, and it was suspected not all abductees were returned. Surprise, surprise. You're going to make a treaty with some alien race you know nothing about, has superior technology, and do whatever they want. That's just, it's about wishful thinking. Again, William Lear said the same thing about the Greys. He said about the deal we supposedly made, that the Greys would get to take a few cattle to experiment with and some people. Lear said, we got something less than the technology we bargained for and found the abductions exceeded by 1,000,000-fold rather than what we naively agreed to. Again, let's take one more moment to pause. Our government sold us out. Even if they only had intentions of taking like 100 people, that you could have been one of 100. Your relatives could have been one of 100. They took millions. If this happened, if these guys exist, just stop and think about that. They sold us out, and they could not protect us, even if they had regretted it.
And that's probably why you have the issue. Why hasn't there been disclosure? Because
I'm going to get into that too.
Yeah, it would be so like.
It has to do with how this stayed quiet. It has, that there's a reason. So
right,
it has to do with that too. Because I said disclosure is more devastating than probably an alien landing in your yard. He said, Phil Schneider, claimed that despite the treaty's obvious provisions on the number of humans who would be abducted, the aliens altered the bargain until they decided they just wouldn't abide by it at all. Sounds like a bully to me. So if you're ever wondering where in the world General Douglas MacArthur came up with his weird warning in 1955, maybe now you have some context where he said, you now face a new world, a world of change, we speak in strange terms of harnessing the cosmic energy of ultimate conflict between a united human race and the sinister forces of some other planetary galaxy. The nations of the world will have to unite, for the next war will be an interplanetary war. The nations of Earth must someday make a common front against attack by people from other planets. Why didn't Ike disclose? Because he thought it would destabilize the American economy. That's the main reason. But there's more I'm going to tack onto that. But let's talk about this as historical. So apparently, before first contact, prior to 1950s, let's say, incidentally, the date of the modern era is January 1st, 1950, because that's bomb testing time. Because once those particles got in our atmosphere, they're there for a long time, and that just marks, like, we were pretty and clean, and now we're not, you know. Like, from the inception of Earth to 1950, you know, those were the good years. So prior to 1950s, there was sort of this, I guess, I don't know if this is, they're talking about pop culture here, this sense of friendly space brothers out there in the universe. If anyone was even, you know, speculating about life from other planets or out in outer space. But after first contact, things seem to change with perceptions, and now you've got abductions and people starting to remember, and it's not good. For instance, let's take the Betty and Barney Hill case, which is probably the first, earliest, well-known. Mm-hmm. It was a case of missing time that they began to recall, and it was deeply disturbing and upsetting. And I read that book, and I couldn't get all the way through it. I was just like drained by it. I was maybe within 20 pages of being done with it. I'm like, I can't go on, you know. So, of course, there's differing opinions about which alien groups had good or bad intentions. There's, you know, a lot of disagreement between just Ike's administration about what they should say, what they shouldn't say, what they could do, what they can't do, as far as telling the public. So Cooper, Lear, Schneider, and Corso, and possibly MacArthur himself, felt their alien presence here was not good. None of them. So it bears repeating, perhaps, Gerald Light's account where he said, terrific conflict between the various authorities on whether to inform the public or not. So, how do they keep the secret so long? The first thing that probably held back is because the Greys were so duplicitous and untrustworthy. They probably didn't want to leak that out, you know. The fact our government brokered a deal with them to let them take human beings, whether it was 100 or 1 million, they did it. We agreed, and they did it. They overdid it. So imagine how we would feel if that got out. That's strike one against our government from us. Plus, hey, our government knows about aliens. Not just one kind of aliens, at least 3, 4, or 5. Roswell. Guess what? They were lying, covering that up. Yeah, hey, our government's lied to you. Strike two. Now, after doing all this research, Gerald Light's response in his letters about how he felt about seeing all this is plausible now. It's a psychological mind, you know what. Also, it's a matter of national security. That's always a good excuse, according to government officials. Now, this is what they said. This is probably how they kept it quiet. This is, quote, under no circumstances is the general public or the public press to learn of the existence of these entities. The official government policy is such that creatures do not exist, that no agency of the federal government is now engaged in any study of extraterrestrials or their artifacts. Any deviation from this stated policy is absolutely forbidden. Penalties for disclosing classified information concerning extraterrestrials are quite severe. In December 1953, the Joint Chiefs of Staff of Army, Navy, Air Force made unauthorized release of information concerning UFOs as a crime under the Espionage Act, punishable by up to 10 years in prison, $10,000 fine. According to Robert Dean, this draconian penalty is what prevents most former military servicemen from coming forward to disclose information. So my question to you is this all true? Well, the ones that did come forward, look what they were risking, to do so. And did they, so far I've counted like 8 of them. Did they all meet up and say, let's make sure we got our story straight and we tell this to the public, so if they're trying to put one over on this, would they go to that kind of trouble? They had accounts of several incidences where they had been discredited because they were whistleblowers. They had been tried to, Cooper said they tried to intimidate him and discredit his testimony, pointing out inaccuracies, retractions. But he says when you're a whistleblower, sometimes you have to make a retraction or put out some inaccuracies in your testimony to keep from being physically harmed. It's been pointed out by some that making retractions keeps them alive. Now, at his farewell speech in 1961, Eisenhower said, alluding to the growing power of the national security agencies that dealt with the extraterrestrial presence and regaining a great power as a result of the dilemma over what to do with them, he said, in councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought by the military-industrial complex. He's saying something there without saying it, The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic process. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. There's a lot he's saying but not saying in there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
He's saying, don't let the military take over and overdo it when they're trying to fight back this alien presence. That's how I'm reading that. Y'all need to know what's going on because this could take over. That's why I'm taking it. Maybe I have it wrong. What's your interpretation out there? I don't know. So if Ike was dissatisfied with non-disclosure of their presence, then his speech was indicating that the responsible national security agencies were both dominating public policy and taking a hard line approach that was inconsistent with American democratic ideals. So I guess he's going back on himself and saying, should have disclosed because it's worse if the military takes over and handles it all. That's what I'm taking away from this. So, again, I told you about Holloman Air Force Base. Mm-hmm. Now it becomes like the hot spot after, all the official meetings. So, 1964, 3 more UFOs fly to Holloman Air Force Base. They were actually tracked on radar. They were captured on film. They landed. 3 humanoids got out. They were kind of blue-gray complected. They had tight flight suits on. They met with the Air Force Base commander. They stayed several days while their aircraft was repaired. What happened and what was discussed, nobody knows. So, New Mexico seems like the place to go if you're an alien. Not just this, but, you've got the Dulce Base and...
I had read some stories that New Mexico resembles a lot like their home planet. And that's why they
use that and all the way over to California to make Star Trek episodes. Because it looks like an alien planet. Because when we went to Joshua Tree, by accident, we accidentally drove to Joshua Tree National Park. That looked like a freaking alien landscape. Because I had never seen anything like that anywhere. Of course, I don't get out much. But I saw rock formations and boulders and it's just amazing how the Earth was in such upheaval and it just broke itself apart and left it there for you to see. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? So there's another aspect of this. I didn't know where to work it in to this story chronologically, because I felt like we needed to talk about the meetings and who was there, who said what aliens. I wanted to get all that straight first, so I didn't know where to stick in Val Valiant Thor the Venusian. So, first, why was he called Val Valiant Thor? I don't know. That never came up. I don't know if he gave himself that name or if it was a translation from Venusian. I didn't know you could live on Venus. I thought Venus was just a hot pocket of inhospitable gas, but I don't know nothing about alien tech, so maybe that's possible. So,
well, Venus is a greenhouse type planet. It's very hot. The temperature's up there.
Where we're headed, huh?
It rains acidic rain. So, humans like us.
I don't know why you just put chocolate rain in my head. That song.
So
thanks for that.
Biological beings such as ourselves would not last very long.
That's what I don't understand, this claim to be from Venus and looking like us. But again, tech, maybe, I don't understand.
You could fly there. You could, if you had a
acid-proof vehicle, and then, I guess somehow get underneath the ground. Would protect you from some of that. Yeah, nobody's going to come messing with you with, acid rain and heat.
Actually, Venus would be the perfect planet to hide. If
you had the appropriate...
If you had the proper vehicle to withstand the planet.
So Val Valiant Thor supposedly lived as a stranger at the Pentagon for 3 years before he interacted with President Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon at the White House and at Air Force military brass that he met. So he met the president. Val said he and his 3-person crew had arrived on Earth March 16th, 1957 in a town called Alexandria in Virginia. The 4 extraterrestrial beings would then go on to meet with Neil H. McElroy, who was the Secretary of Defense at the time. Then after that, President Eisenhower, Vice President Nixon. Now, they think, it's believed, for a significant period after this meeting, Val and his team met with the senior politicians and Air Force commanders on numerous occasions and gave them advice on policy and dealings with other extraterrestrial beings. That's what I like about all these stories, is all these guys, all these aliens know each other. It's like, I was told the universe is big, but apparently I don't know if they all live in the same neighborhood, but they all know about each other.
Well, I brought up this name to you before. I was going to say Timothy Good, but it's actually Corey Good, who was involved with the, I guess, the space fleet that's out there. And he talks about going to this, UN of the aliens.
Oh, yeah. I remember you telling me or hearing about that. That was bizarre.
And there was this one particular encounter. It totally kind of freaked him out, and this particular alien looked like a demon. It had the wings on the back, and the skull was very, I guess you could say, demonic, reptilian. Yeah. And but yeah, his story is very interesting, and that's why I was talking about earlier about tying in, because he talks about how the military actually goes on some of these flights with these aliens that abduct humans, because they're trying to keep the records now, because these aliens haven't been keeping these records. And
I guess they can't stop them at all.
But his story is very fascinating, and maybe at some point we could talk about him.
Okay. Well, this Val alien met up with a guy called Dr. Stranges, because somehow this doctor had gotten a hold of a photo of Val before anybody knew who he was and whatnot. and he was looking into it, and he was fascinated. Well, somehow the alien found out about Dr. Strange's, I'm assuming this is how you pronounce it, Stranges. And they got along really well. And Dr. Strange's had a very deep faith. And Val said to this doctor that the Bible, as we know it, was a representation of the truth. But the only thing is, Jesus Christ was not a human being, but rather a space alien. That's not going to fly. Val claimed that he had wanted to preach this news on Earth, but had been dissuaded, I like that word, dissuaded, from doing so by the senior politicians of the day. No freaking kidding way. So Dr. Strange is best known today for his best-selling work, Stranger at the Pentagon, which was published first in 1967. Now, that book captured the imagination and sparked one of the longest-running mythologies related to the UFO phenomenon and the hollow Earth theory. Now, let's get on to more modern sources like Laura Eisenhower.
Mm-hmm.
She said of this whole thing, quoting her, the Nordics were connected to the Germans, and it wasn't this whole, he made a deal with the wrong guys, meaning her great-grandfather. It was like there needed to be so much discernment and clarity about the whole larger picture that how can you possibly do that in those times? I mean, this is what we're trying to sort out now, is these timelines and the deeper history connected to secret societies, connected to, these deeper ET agendas that have been around for thousands of years. That's a direct quote. I'm not, being weird there. So I'm guessing she's saying her relative didn't have all the information, couldn't possibly have all the information to make a educated guess on who to side with, who to trust. There's no precedent. He was just, he's like Picard meeting a new race of aliens, So, and they didn't have a first contact rule. What is that, a prime directive? I guess the prime directive was, hey, they're blowing stuff up that might hurt us. Let's go check it out. So, I think that's a good way to put it, is there's a lot to unravel there, like hidden agendas, secrets, lies, cover-up. This part of the government didn't know this part of the government had black projects. So it's like, you don't have all the facts. How can you make the best decision if all the information isn't there? It's being hidden, kept from you, or you're lied to.
Right.
Now, again, I talked about Michael Salas in his paper where he explores the evidence of the first contact meeting. So I think that's probably where the bulk of this research came from, his paper, because it was really well done. So I'd asked you earlier in the day, why is this first contact but not Roswell? So you told me first contact is a scheduled diplomatic meeting between two or more races. Mm-hmm. Roswell was a crash, or we shot them down. It was an accident. We weren't prepared.
It was the aliens leaving the left turn blinker on.
Yeah,
and
the main parts of our government weren't informed about it. It was kept secret. There's no official channels about it back and forth. It was covered. So did he meet with aliens? The evidence is pretty stacked, pretty high.
I guess at that point, let's take us out to a break.
Hi, I'm Spaceboy.
And I'm Surlana.
And you're listening to Spaceboy Universe
on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. I must have been stuffed up during that.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
Greetings, Space Cadets. Let's see what's in the sky tonight in the Spaceboy Universe. Tonight, in the eastern sky, we have Spaceboy Universe rising above the horizon in glorious splendor. And in the west, we can see Surlana Majoris, which is visible at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, just below the K28 belt. So keep your eyes on the sky and listen to Spaceboy Universe.
I'm Solaris Blue Ribbon, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
All right, we're back. And as Surlana said in the chat room, the phone lines are open. That's 833-202-7286. Yes, so if you want to call in, now would be a good time to do it. And
toll free?
Toll free, no charge to you.
Going once? Going twice? No, they'll just stay open. I'm pretty much done with what I had to say.
But so it's just interesting how you have this one point, and then going forward through history, how
now that fascinates me too. Where does this slot in? When we just talked about McCarthyism, the same president was dealing with that, and then he's got to go run over and talk to these aliens, and then you've got this bomb testing going, and that's a lot to deal with, But especially when one of those things is like literally earth shattering,
Mm-hmm.
So I just, I forgot Thanksgiving happened because our Thanksgiving was at Denny's and it was just me and you, which is just fine with me.
Mm-hmm.
However, on Thanksgiving morning, I did boogie up to my friend's house where her husband Cajun fried us a turkey, and I brought that bad boy home. I was high on turkey fumes in the car all the way home. I was like, man, it smells so good. It's still in the smelling up the refrigerator good. I think you and I attacked it like a pack of rabid wolves, and just carved it up, and just, you know, it was so good. All I have to do is I PayPal her the money. They go buy the turkey and the stuff to inject it with and season it with. He fries it. I just grab it, take it home. It was awesome.
You had mentioned MacArthur, General MacArthur.
Yeah.
You know, you had also Eisenhower dealing with. Well, actually, Truman was the one who.
Before. Yeah.
Yanked him out of being a general. And I guess that's at that some point that's when he makes that speech in front of Congress.
The one I talked about?
Yes.
Huh. Well, who was the one that was it Eisenhower or is it MacArthur that said beware of the military-industrial complex?
Eisenhower did that.
Eisenhower.
As he was leaving.
That was a snippet taken from that long speech I said.
Yeah, he wanted to warn the public that
because they had something they had to control and they couldn't control it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got these alien races that we can't do anything about. We can't overpower them. We can't stop them from what they're doing, the bad ones. So you can imagine if we wanted to, we'd have to take some kind of extreme measures. Maybe that's why Eisenhower didn't want to give up our testing and our nuclear options. So I can kind of see it from both sides, but the problem is it all comes down to, I swear it's like greed is built into human DNA, and that's the one thing we have to overcome. I also heard an intriguing concept, and I'm not sure if I can get this out correctly. I was listening to another podcast that talked about, in this podcast, the guy talks about listening to a podcast. Okay, hang on. I've been saved by the bell. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
How are you?
Hello?
Beth? Can you hear us, Beth?
I was waiting for him to wake up.
Just slap him one. Just kidding.
No,
I'm doing good. How are you guys doing?
Good.
I've been better.
No, I was just looking for Reagan's UN speech where he talked about about uniting the planet as one.
If any president knew about aliens, I think it's definitely Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
I think so too.
But he didn't do. I don't know if he did anything about it or said anything about it.
Yeah, in fact, I believe he thought about, aliens, an alien invasion constantly. So it makes you wonder.
Yeah, he did. Mm-hmm. And I think he was the only really president that was outspoken about it.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, what's funny is Carter actually saw a UFO before he was president.
But,
oh, yeah.
We were talking about this before, Surlana, is that I don't think that Carter was briefed like other presidents about the situation. I think maybe
it wasn't a problem anymore.
Actually, Reagan was briefed on the UFO situation. And
I didn't know that.
Yeah. But yeah, there wasn't, and Nixon knew, because who was Eisenhower's vice president?
Nixon.
Mm-hmm. So he was a part of that, and it was said that Nixon took up a lot of responsibilities towards Eisenhower's ending his term because I don't want to call Eisenhower frail, but he had some issues that Nixon had to get out there in front of everything and kind of, be the front man, if you will. And so, and then everybody wonders if JFK knew something if that possibly got him killed or not.
Well, and I've always said that there was more than one person involved in that. I always said that Lee Harvey Oswald was not the one that shot him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, only the babushka lady knows who shot who.
The babushka lady?
Yeah, you've not heard about that? There was a lady in the film, in different parts of the Magruder film, and other pictures that were taken. And there's this lady, you know what a babushka lady looks like, dude, don't you? She usually
like that scarf around her head, heavy coat.
Heard of a babushka lady.
Yeah,
a Russian woman.
A Russian woman with the scarf and heavy coat, and but yeah, she was spotted in a lot of the pictures and in the film, and she apparently was taking pictures too. And from her vantage point, her pictures that she would have taken would have definitely, shown a lot of things, but she disappeared. She never came forward. Nobody knows what happened to her or who she is, and she's a mystery to this very day. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, very fascinating.
I think the CIA killed Kennedy.
I do too.
I really do.
I think Alan Dulles was behind it.
Mm-hmm. And Lee Harvey Oswald was the scapegoat.
Yeah, he was the stooge. He was a setup.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The patsy.
Yep. And no one will ever be brought to justice for it, so
no.
That's sad.
You know what? It's really frustrating is the, there were supposed to be the release of these documents of the committee that, went through all this, and not all of the FBI documents were released. I think Trump held back some of the documents, so we didn't get all the documents, and so, and the only reason that would have been would be that there are people still alive that
could be harmed.
Yes, could be harmed by the release of the information.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Bob said the mob took out Bobby.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fascinating, that all this info that is starting to come out now about the presidents and UFOs.
Mm-hmm.
And
how does that make you feel to know that? I know it's kind of funny just to say it because it kind of goes on now that your government's been lying to you about something as great as an extraterrestrial presence in the universe,
and selling us out for research.
For research.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. The government will do anything to gain. What do I want to say? Oh, you know what I'm talking about, though.
Mm-hmm.
They'll do anything to lie to us, so we don't know the truth because they don't want us to know the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was saying. Disclosure would be more devastating than, hey, there's some aliens that landed, because then it tells us, like, 1, they've been lying to us, 2, they've sold us out, and 3, they knew, and they can't protect us.
And take it to another level. So the United States has been lying because they made think about it. They made this treaty that these aliens could not make another treaty with someone else.
What's to stop them? They got,
And I mean, it would really paint the United States in a bad light.
Mm-hmm. That international relations would be.
Yeah.
it's like, the only thing that they were worried about is their what do I want to say? Their position. It might be taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that we need to have terms for senators and congressmen also, just like we do for presidents.
I think the reason we don't is people just get sick of having to get up and go vote so much.
Well, that's just the price to pay. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like the fact that these senators have 6-year terms and make a career out of it. There should be no reason to go to D.C. to make a career and get rich off the
lobbyists.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, yeah. And then they have this huge retirement plan.
Mm-hmm. Goal plan.
But, yeah.
I was.
Well, how was you guys? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I can't remember where I heard this or read this, but someone had said that the only way we're going to get true, what is it, disclosure, is that
we're all having a terrible time tonight.
True disclosure, it will have to be given. We'll have to give those involved immunity.
Yes, from repercussions.
From the repercussions.
Maybe we're being bombarded with some kind of ray to keep us from talking about this.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think ultimately that's what we're looking at. I mean, is immunity is going to be the way we're
never happen.
Well, we can only wait and see. Anyway,
and only hope.
And hope.
Well, how was you guys' Thanksgiving?
Well, Denny's came through and
yep,
and
you and me at Denny's.
Yep. But
he had your traditional turkey, and I had waffles, scrambled eggs, and bacon.
Oh.
But Surlana brought home
I did bring home a Cajun fried turkey that my friend Leanne's husband. I'd gone up there. I got up early Thursday morning and trekked up to where she lives, and I got to pet 4 horses, 3 cats, a dog, a donkey, and a miniature horse. So.
Aww. That sounds like fun.
It was. So, at least, and I came back with a Cajun fried turkey, and then we attacked it like wolves.
It was good. It was good. Surlana had remembered to buy me some cranberry.
In a can?
In a can. The kind that's molded to the can.
Yeah.
Ocean spray.
I like cranberry juice, but I don't like cranberry sauce. I don't know why.
Wow.
Same here.
It's basically jelly. It goes good.
His mom loves cranberry sauce.
Goes good with turkey.
Mm-hmm.
I beg to differ. Once you've seasoned the turkey, Cajun turkey, you don't need anything to go with it.
The only thing I haven't had, well, a couple of other items, is stuffing. I can't really call the stuff I had at Denny's stuffing.
It was dressing.
It looked like a military ration of some kind.
Yeah, it was a lump of something.
And but green bean casserole.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
But this turkey, I mean, I didn't know whether to eat it or throw it on the floor and roll around in it. It was so good.
Oh, my. I've never had Cajun turkey.
Well, don't. Because if you don't have regular access to it, you'll become a junkie. You got to have your next fix, and you won't be able to get your next turkey fix. So don't start something you can't continue.
Plus, you might burn your house down from deep frying.
That's why I go to an expert to get my turkeys fried.
There's been a lot of turkey mishaps with because if it's frozen,
if the turkey don't get you, the Black Friday will. So
yeah,
it's a very dangerous time of year.
We don't do Black Friday.
I've never done Black Friday ever in my life, and I have no
did
intentions.
Oh gosh. years ago, we did it one time, and we went to Walmart, and oh my gosh, it was awful. Here I am in that one of those electric carts, and people were just, I mean, they were bombarding me. I couldn't get through the aisle. Bob was like 2 aisles over, and I was having a panic attack. 'Cause I don't do well in crowds. Man,
I don't either.
If it wouldn't have been for this one sweet lady, I would have been trapped there for who knows how long. She told him to move out of the way so I could get through, and oh man, my niece though, she's addicted to it.
Must be addicted to drama.
And better you than me. Oh,
There's
yeah, we
two
never went
things
again.
that are keeping me from being a really great shut-in. One, I don't get to work from home. And two, they're not delivering groceries from our favorite store to our house, although that could change sometime within the next 6 months to a year. I don't know that I'll ever be allowed to work from home, but as soon as I'm allowed to work from home and get groceries sent to the house, I'm never leaving again.
Well, Amazon will deliver.
Yeah, but they have a limited selection that they will bring in under 2 hours. It's not their full.
Now, see, I'd rather go and get my own groceries.
No,
'cause I know what I like. And as far as meat, I want to pick out my own meat.
Well, they let you, I mean, the way we do it for the curbside is, you know, this is the extra lean meat, this is the sirloin, and then you tell them, if you don't have it, I don't want you to substitute it, just leave it off. I'll come back and deal with it the next day myself. So we do curbside, and that's like, that limits my interaction with other human beings down to one human being per visit. And that's probably what we'll do tomorrow is we'll grocery shop online to pick, so I'll pick it up, Monday or something. But the entire grocery buying experience is absolutely devastating to me, especially when I'm by myself. Because I'm just like, people, get away from me, get away from me, get away from me. And the minute I get in there, all I'm thinking is get out, get out, get out, get out. That's why I end up missing at least 5 things on my list, even though they're on the list and I'm looking at the list. My anxiety just sort of wipes all that out. So.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh my God. Now I'm like Bob, we like going to Walmart like at 3 a.m. in the morning, nobody there. But see, Bob does most of the shopping because my car, I think we need a new battery in it, and it's the tags aren't up to date. But
I do most of the shopping because I think I can just get it done faster. Not saying it's accurate, but it's faster.
There you go. But see, now with his truck, you guys would laugh your butts off seeing me get in his truck. I have to use a stool. And I grab a hold of that handle there inside the door. And then Bob boosts me up on the stool, and I get in that way. I mean, the door, when you open it up, I think it comes up to about my waist.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm only 5 foot tall. I've shrank 2.25 inches. See, that's what happens when you get old.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I'm not looking forward to any of that. I'm looking forward to any of that.
Oh, and I'll tell you what, you feel everything, every stupid thing you did as a kid and thought you were invincible.
Oh, well, I didn't do anything as a kid. So.
Well, I feel everything.
Oh, we did.
So.
I feel. Well, I broke my left collarbone when I was 6 or 8 years old, and I can tell when the weather changes. That hurts. I know when it's going to rain, and I can tell you the pressure outside just from my body.
Well, Bev, we appreciate you calling in.
Well, and I appreciate you guys too.
Indeed.
I guess we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
And I missed your birthday party.
It's all right.
Oh, it's all right. It sucked anyway.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's all right.
Well, I had to go stay with his mom because his brother and his wife went out of town, and she lives with them, and she's
Bob let us know.
8 years old.
He let us know.
Okay.
Yeah, we weren't bothered.
I mean, we missed you being there, but
it's not a big deal.
We know you care.
Well, you guys have a great rest of your evening.
Thank
all
you,
right,
Bev.
you too. All right, so we're going to take this break.
And I will. Okay.
And I guess we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Bev.
Okay. Well, thank you guys. Love you.
Love you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, so we're going to take a quick break here so that Surlana can take care of some business, and we'll be right back.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
Get your game on Spaceboy Universe. Level up with Spaceboy Universe. No quarters, no problems. Play it at Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
All right, we're back. Well, sort of. Surlana still stepped away for a moment. She's making her way back to the universe. And when you get back over there, Surlana, there might be somebody in the call queue.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Hold on just one moment. Okay, that was the chair. Let's see who's on the line. Sorry, I ran.
Hello.
Hello, is this Catalina?
Yeah, hi.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Feel better, Surlana. I know Thanksgiving always seems to hit people strangely afterwards.
Yeah, and I apologize
if
I suddenly disappear from this conversation. I apologize.
No, I understand. I think back on all different Thanksgivings, and it was funny. There was the day before Thanksgiving, one of the local radio stations here had people calling up to give their epic Thanksgiving fail. It was hilarious. I guess I mean I've had mine too, but it made me feel a little better that it's like it's just human nature. There's just going to be weird things that happen at Thanksgiving. It's not always like the perfect picture. Anyways, I wanted to share something on the alien.
Please do.
Part. It's interesting because we've heard so much of after the Greada Treaty in the 50s, and then I heard recently the abduction story from this fellow in Brazil in 1957. I don't know if you guys heard of that one. No. And then after his was the Betty and Barney Hill. Yeah, the one in Brazil, I guess he was like one of the first persons to come out before we'd ever heard of alien abductions. And then Betty Barney Hill, and then of course all the different ones, Travis Walton and all the other ones after that.
Oh yeah.
So then there's been a lot of hypotheses then about, well, okay, so we know from the abductees that have said that sperm and ovum was taken. So what you don't hear too much about is, okay, so there's a good, fair chance and belief that, it was used to make hybrids, or what we call star seeds. And some people now, the young folks, some of them come out and say, oh, I'm a star seed and I'm from so-and-so planet, right? So it just makes me wonder, of all those different people that are from this planet that were abducted and the human conception stuff was taken. I mean, how many, were brought here? How many are from those same people,
I got transplants, you mean?
Yeah, are they on this Earth? Or how many went to other planets in our solar system or out in other galaxies? Nobody seems to be speculating on that part, and I find that part fascinating. What do you guys think?
Well, I hadn't thought about that. One, maybe we're not the only ones being abducted. Two, maybe there was some crossbreeding, cross-seeding on purpose, like, oh, we'll take you from this planet, we'll stick you on this planet, see what happens, you breed with them, and then, that's interesting. I've never really thought of that because, we're so egocentric, human.
Exactly.
It's all about us.
Well, or just Earth-centric. People aren't thinking enough about other, if they came from other stars, would it make sense that they would take, the human stuff and then take it back to their planet, or ships or whatever? I mean, I can't just believe that they all came back here to this planet. And if they did come back to this planet, could that be part of, so many people think, oh, the planet's overpopulated. I mean, could it be that they were brought here? I mean, they weren't even born here, they were just brought here. And maybe that's why some places are overpopulated. I just find that angle interesting, and it doesn't seem like nobody's really even discussing that whole part. They discussed, yes, there's a hybrid program, but not like, well, where are they going? I wish there'd be more speculation scientists, trying to theorize on that part, because I find that fascinating. But you're right. It's like, we're just kind of focused just on ourselves, just on the planet. Shouldn't we be thinking further out?
Well, as far as
that's
that
kind of what I keep
hybrids,
thinking.
I'm thinking, unless they're just so bored,
Well,
they've done nothing else. There must be a reason for them to want to create a stronger version of themselves, maybe a more, how pure breeds are weaker than mutts, because mutts have more variety in their bloodline. Same thing can be going with us. They could be dying out. Something that's been explored in science fiction, especially Stargate SG-1 and Star Trek The Next Generation, both had episodes dealing with when an alien race makes a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, cloning, and it just begins to degrade, and then they eventually have nothing left to copy or they can't reproduce biologically for some reason or anymore. And that happened with the gray alien looking race on SG-1, and it happened with a humanoid looking race on Star Trek The Next Generation, which was an interesting concept, but then they went and made it goofy by finding a race of almost primitive Irish people, and they said, here, y'all go mate with these that was really strange. But the Stargate one was more serious. It was more what happens when you reach the end of the line of the cloning process. So that could be a possibility too.
And some of the stories I've read about the abduction phenomenon is that these aliens have no concept for love, and so they want to create these hybrids to replace or to help them
get it on.
No, it's not.
Or experience love.
No, have the ability to feel and have compassion.
Exactly.
Well, this goes back to what D'Souza says. They want a soul. They don't have it, and they would like to have what we have.
Mm-hmm. So
if they don't have a soul, then once their time frame of existence ends, that's it. They don't reincarnate if they're cloned.
Mm-hmm.
If they're just cloned.
Deep.
Yeah, that part is fascinating too, which goes back to where did the soul begin? Where did AI begin? Did they begin at the same time? I find those two things fascinating too. I mean, people are really religious, say, oh, well, God created the soul. Well, did God create AI? I mean, were they both created at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Because
I read
we keep hearing,
an article
are going to become more AI.
That in the future, humans will probably end up worshiping AI as a religion.
Yeah, see, you just reminded me of something that I had watched recently on YouTube, where you have, let's say, you clone yourself, several times over. The clones of yourself, if they die, do they have an afterlife? Do they?
Is it a carbon copy of the afterlife of the previous version?
Do they have that soul that can go on beyond you? And if you're prime, meaning you're the original person out of the mix of clones that have been cloned out of you, you would go on because you have a soul of some kind that would go back out into the universe, so to speak. And I thought that was kind of fascinating, that line of thinking to make you think.
Mm-hmm. Remember when we had on?
Yeah, I think I read somewhere where the original copy with the soul stays, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The clones do die out, but the original one with the soul stays.
Alien Hunter, remember we had him on? He said the account he had was they had a human on board and had one of each different race, I think, that we mentioned tonight, and they said, point to the human soul. Where is the human soul inside your body? And the guy's like, Because they were desperate to know, where is it? How do we find it? How do we get it? That's from Daryl Sims.
Yeah, so those concepts, we need to delve further, also deeper with this hibernation program as well, not just the man-made ones, but the ET level too. And, if the hybrid ones are the survivors of the planet, I mean, do they carry on our sentimental, I can't think of the word, sentiment for what has gone before us that we enjoyed? Mm-hmm. You know how we get sentimental about, certain decades of things that happened and stuff. Well, I mean, will these hybrids not have that because they weren't here? They didn't experience that?
Well, now,
that would be something.
You're into the classic dilemma of nature versus nurture, or, are you shaped by your environment, or are you shaped by the things that are inherent in your DNA? Now you're talking about DNA that's part human, half alien. Now, does that factor in, plus how they're raised and where they're raised? So these are like questions upon questions. Just, you throw in another set of DNA because they're hybrid that we don't know which race, we don't know how they do, how they think, how they feel, do they experience this or not? Is that going to be the dominant gene for this hybrid? Are they just human enough to get what they need out of it? You know what I'm saying? That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Because we don't know everything.
Well, then maybe it was a good thing that wasn't some of our greatest achievement things went up in a time capsule or went on a Tesla car or something like that. Wasn't something taken out in space like that? Mm-hmm. Like Oliver. I forgot that.
The Tesla car.
There's a Tesla car.
Launched that into space.
But that was just hey, look
what
we can do.
Something else they took? Yeah. Like all of our greatest achievement things or something. It was like written in a capsule or something, wasn't it? Or somewhere, and they put it somewhere.
Our greatest hits.
Just in case we forget. Or that's what I'm wondering. Just in case the hybrids take over, then there's no record of all of our other achievements. Just human achievements, not necessarily the big science stuff, but just us being human and the music that we liked and the clothes that we wore and, all that stuff.
Well, I know the Voyager spacecraft that was launched back in the 70s contained a golden record that had a lot of that information on it.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah, so...
That sucker performed very well for a very long time. They were still having communications with it right before it exited.
Getting back to the soul and all that good stuff, I'm reminded of Linda Moulton Howe. She covered about the aliens having these human-like bodies in their possession, and they were like, I guess, vessels for souls. And how they could reproduce reproduce humans, but the thing is that they couldn't create the spark, if you will,
the soul. Yeah.
But at some point, I think there was a young man that they had that was about to die, so they transferred his soul into a container, as that's what they called them, and to one of these beings, and then took that being that they put the soul in and planted him somewhere in Australia or something like that.
Is that the same thing where she talked about, they showed a human woman this whole process and said, well, he's dying, but we're going to let him be reborn, his whole soul be reborn in this guy, because he still has stuff to do on this earth, so, which is a kind of a sweet story, I guess.
Those are kind of like, sort of like a walk-in thing.
Right.
People talk about they get walk-in.
Very fascinating story. I guess it's somewhere on her site, and now her site eludes me as far as the name.
Earthfiles.com?
Thank you very much. All right.
Easy thing to remember.
Well, usually easy when your brain is wired.
Yeah, I really think they're beaming something at our house so we can't think straight and talk about this. That's what it is.
Oh, I know. That electrical wah, wah, wah sounds. I swear I go to different states, I can hear it. One time I tried to travel it back, I was like, where is that coming from? I couldn't figure it out. I wondered if it was from the power lines itself, Because some people don't have smart meters on their phone or on their houses. Do you guys have one of those in your house?
No. Oh, no. We do not have a smart meter.
Thank goodness.
We don't?
No, we don't.
How do you know?
Because I've been out in the back.
Did you test its IQ?
I know you don't like to go out into the backyard.
I don't like going outside, period, end of sentence, full stop. There's no reason to go outside other than to get out of the house, get in the car, and get back in.
I like to go outside for fresh air.
There's no such thing as fresh air.
Have one.
Yeah, it's. Trust me, I know exactly all the misgivings that those meters come with.
Right. Yeah, because you don't want anything more on your brain than
Are the two
usual.
of you alluding
I'm
to
gonna
some
let
kind
you
of
go,
mind
and
control?
It was good talking with you.
Oh, yes. It was great to hear from you.
Indeed.
Don't stop being a stranger.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Okay, I'll call more often.
All right.
Great.
Have a good evening, dear.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
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 Oh, so great to hear from Catalina, and I wanted just a quick apology to Bev. We weren't trying to rush you off. I really had an emergency I had to deal with. So, are you there, caller?
Oh, yes, I am. Can we have a conference call with Catalina?
Well, she just hung up.
She just left.
She had said all she wanted to say.
Left. Okay, well, hi, you guys. I'm sorry to hear about your health issues. We had our own here with the fires. I couldn't breathe. I didn't go hardly outside for over a week, and just the brain the last couple of days has just cleared my lungs, and I'm feeling better, and I vacuumed my house to get rid of the ash. But anyway, these are some heavy topics tonight, and I love when you get into them. I wanted to add a few more, that GMOs are real. You know, we don't know what the effect is, just like a smart meter. And I told you guys about this spring, I went online and you can buy this mesh to put on your smart meter, and some more of the mesh fabric, which you can sew into clothes if you wish. I used the mesh fabric on the back side of the wall where the bedroom is, so that the meter, because they gave us all smart meters, they're making it so hard here that you can opt out, but then they charge you an extra charge, and it's, and so I blocked that out. But I'm trying to get my neighbor, but he's, unaware rich guy. I kept saying, look, I almost want to buy him one so that his meter, which is 15 feet away from my house, that I could block that. But then even when that's done, you've got your Wi-Fi, and I need Wi-Fi for up and down, and I don't want to be back on cable. But I can swear now, I hope it's not psychological, that I can sometimes late at night hear a little bit of a high pitch on it,
Mm-hmm.
So this 5G that's coming out, I keep hearing, most of us don't need a smart toaster or smart refrigerator. I'll buy my own groceries, and they keep pushing it and pushing it.
Apparently it killed some birds when they tested 5G in some, I forget where this was, but it was an area they were testing the signal. All these birds just dropped out of the sky.
Yeah, and then the disinformation from, the industries that want this in is, oh, well, if that happened, that was concentrated. You're not getting the same level. But we don't know is the bottom line.
Right.
And like the GMOs, I want to warn all our listeners that I just found out this week that it's so far they claim it was a food resource group or something that's online, that only about 10 or 15% of our russet potatoes, the ones we love to bake, I have one in the house here now, I had one for Thanksgiving, that those are GMO, but most of them are not, and doggone it, they gave the name of what they were, the brand, but they said most are not, you should ask your grocery store, but so far, 85% of them are not GMO, but we got to call the companies and, complain. Maybe, I don't know if it'll do any good, but you don't just sit down and take this stuff. And, it's the same with gun control. I mean, I'm a liberal guy. I'm more liberal than a lot of people. But I tell people all the time, that you're not thinking. You're not being a critical thinker when you, you got to answer back against the propaganda, whatever it is, no matter whether it's left or right propaganda. So that's what's been on my mind lately, and I'm feeling a little better. But to any of the listeners, that are there, any of them want my phone number, want to talk to me individually, that's fine. A couple of them already have it. I don't want to put any kind of public airwave stuff. I chatted about Dan. Dan may be coming around. I haven't talked to him, but he just sent me a message. He might be moving to my area, so that'll be nice. Everybody remembers old Dan from the old days.
Mm-hmm.
And so, there are people that are like-minded here and there. But as I texted, on the chat earlier tonight, we're getting so much information. This is UFOs, Bigfoot, Sasquatch are hot topics now, and so is a lot of New Age stuff that I used to hear 20 years ago. It's kind of resurfacing now and recycling. And we have to be careful who we can listen to people, but to what we believe. And this is getting very difficult for some of us to understand who is telling us something that's real, or who is just speculating, or who is outright directing us in a wrong direction with misinformation. And that's what what I like about shows like yours. You try to at least sort through this stuff. Mm-hmm. Good for you guys.
Thank you, Dino. You had mentioned that the I guess the fires and all the I guess pollution that came from all those fires, the dust and the smoke. Thank you, Surlana. But you posted some pictures of chemtrails.
Well, that was very interesting. I don't know. I still have people that don't believe me. I used to think it was bunk. But when you see a clear blue sky and you see, I'm not far from a major international airport, and the jets fly pretty high. I don't usually hear them over me. But you can see on a clear day plenty of jets coming and going. And there's, a contrail, CONTRAL, occasionally is a little bit, but it dissipates in a couple of seconds. Mm-hmm. And that's different from a chemtrail, where obviously something is coming out. Well, people who are ignorant and have not researched it, they just knee-jerk, because there's so much. You have to research. It takes effort to research what's going on politically or environmentally or all the other things that go on. You can no longer believe some of the sources. Walter Cronkite, I think, tried to tell us the truth. And if you look, the modern jet engine on these commercial jet engines does not make visible exhaust like that. And I used to argue with Mike Barra about that. Apparently he called me names offline, I found from other people. He said he was an aeronautics engineer. But the point is that right after 10, 11 days of smoke, and it stunk. I remember the day it happened. I went outside and said, man, something stinks. Is someone running a barbecue? And I go, wait a minute, that's fire. And I live in an area that's just like the areas that burned. It's hilly and full of trees and such now. You don't worry about it as much when you live in the big city. But even then, a big earthquake could cause things to get out of control and fires to jump from. In the city, the houses are closer together. But at any rate, after staying inside, and luckily on about halfway through, I saw how serious the pollution was, because I couldn't see the stars at night from here, which I usually can. And I used to have asthma when I was a kid, and it was getting down into my chest. I could feel it down below my sternum. And there's all kinds of pollutants and heavy metals and, body parts, God forbid, from all the burning. And so I did find that I had an N95 mask. They were out of them at stores. I was hardly going out for a week. But I found one from a paint job I'd done in my garage. I go, thank goodness, and I wore it to go grocery shopping. And only some people were wearing them. But the day afterwards, when we finally it started to clear up, and then that night had beautiful, heavy rain where I live. I looked out the next morning and go, oh, great, blue sky again, fresh air, I can see the bay, And that afternoon, from every direction, left, right, north, south, east, west, I saw at very high altitude jet chemtrails. And after about 2 hours, they were spreading out. They were still there. You saw, and you could watch them, and they were spreading out. And apparently Dave Cruz, who lives, about a half hour away from me, he took pictures and saw them. Mm-hmm. And then, the rain came very heavily the next day, and maybe it was just weather modification. But are we giving permission for this? What's in those sprays? Well, people who have analyzed them, and people I know right now, I know one woman up in Washington State that analyzes twice a year, sends them to an independent lab, and there's aluminum and barium. And these are not things we should be breathing in such small, powdery quantities. And then they land on the ground, and now that sounds crazy, but people talk about directed energy weapons, or DEWs, and then are they shooting from satellites or high altitude? Are they government planes? Are they, new world planes? It gets really crazy. Most people can't follow that. But if that were true, let's just set aside, doubt for a minute. All these chemicals that have been being sprayed for years are all on our trees and our ground, and when they ignite, they make the fire hotter.
Mm-hmm.
So I think most people on this program have seen the post and the people talking about these fires, but this is the worst we've ever seen. I mean, even President Trump was almost speechless when he went up to look at them later last week. He said he'd never seen such devastation. I mean, war zones don't get the kind. It's flattened. An old childhood friend of mine has a weekend, kind of a summer house up there with his wife on a 1/4 acre, and it's gone. They were on their way up there, and they had to turn around. They hadn't been up there for a couple of months, heard there was a fire, and it's like that town is flattened. And my father used to live up in Paradise briefly years ago, and so, there's a lot going on right now. It's almost too much, to follow, but you have to discipline yourself to take, to not get depressed totally, but to take some time out of every day or two to delve into the news. Don't just believe the headlines. Look behind the headlines.
I kept thinking about, I wish there was a way, I don't know enough, I don't know how to do the research even, to find out a way to do like a mini course, maybe, I don't know if I could do it through the show, it's 3 hours, I suppose I could, on media literacy, like how to sort through the fake news and headlines and information. But I don't have all the tools for it, so.
Well, but it might be nice to just bring that up, because for people who are not as savvy, or not into research and all, even if you gave some hints about ways you can tell when things are not quite right, or places you can go to check sources.
Yeah, he suggested I do that, and maybe even rent or purchase a course textbook on it that has some, grounded information. So
that would be highly interesting.
I'd really like to do that, but how do I fit it in with my life?
Yeah, I know how it is. We all have lives, and we have to remember that. I have a friend that posts a dozen posts at a time. Whenever she's on Facebook, I keep telling her to retire, and she keeps going to work. She's older than me. She's in debt. And I say, how do you have time? You come home to your apartment after working 5 days a week, and then you get online and you depress yourself even more with all the bad news and the bad political mistakes that are being made nowadays. And I try to give her something positive. I've known this person 30 years, And then she says, well, maybe you're right. She's like a Virgo, she's got to look into every detail. But like you, Surlana, she's very bright, and she looks behind things, and she keeps going and going.
Good.
And I say that's fine, but people tune out when you put too much negativity at once. And I told her once in a while, post something positive so people have a break, But the research, if you could do even a little bit, just say, here are some methods to find out, whether something especially posted online or even, printed in newspapers nowadays. I don't know if they have the city editors that are as like our old English school teachers anymore. The few newspapers that are left to edit out, weak stories. So
a lot of it's just very basic investigative stuff that most of us can do. If you can read, you can look this stuff up. But yeah, I might look into doing that. I'm getting the eyeball.
I vote for you to do it.
I'm getting the eyeball from Spaceboy. We've got 1 minute left in the show.
Well, it's wonderful to talk to you guys again. I'm sorry both of you are having your health problems.
It's not that big a deal for me. It'll pass, so.
Okay. Well, everybody hates a shitty life. But anyway, I'll say good night to you and the listeners, and you'll be on next week, correct?
Yes.
All right. Good night.
Good night, Dino. All right. As always, we do not know what next week's show is, but by the next few days, just look for the post out there, and you'll see what the show will be. Good night, Space Cadets.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Surlana. Executive producer is Surlana. Associate producer is Lee Ann Cordes. Music production is Spaceboy of SpaceboyMusic.com. Special thanks goes out to Lee Ann K, K28, Dino, Solars Blue Raven, Patrick Sporer, Bob and Beverly N. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. Support the universe by exploring Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Surlana. Sweet dreams, Space Cadets.